Hey guys, another one of them random information videos. I apologize for the noise in the background right now. We're a working shop, so I've shut down the shop a few times to shoot videos. I'm not going to do that right now. This is kind of a follow-up to a few other videos that I've shot. So I apologize for the noise, but I'm showing how we cut some of the plate that we cut here at the shop. And we've got a mimeograph table torch that I use for a lot of the thicker stuff. In this particular case, I'm after a very clean-cut square edge on the side of my plate. And so usually I won't use this saw for anything thicker than 1/4 inch because it gets a lot of heat buildup when you use it on stuff that's thicker than 1/4 inch. But in this particular case, like I say, I'm looking for a clean square edge on 3/8 plate. So I am going to go ahead and use our cold cut saw on this. Now I personally prefer the Millwalkee saw. They have served me well. The first generation of them did not have a thermal switch in them, a thermal overload. So they had a habit of burning up the windings in the motor if you loaded it too heavy. Since then, they have put a thermal switch in it, so it will overload and turn the saw off if it gets too hot before it does any damage to the motor. The only problem that I've had other than that is this plastic latch that holds the catch tray on. I have melted a couple of those because this catch bin that catches your chips will get super hot, especially when you're cutting thick plate. Now, you want to use the saw with this guard in place because these saws do not have a good open dispatch system on them. When the guard or this cover is off, the chips do come back towards your hand. So you always want to make sure that the saw has its proper guards in place. You've got, in this particular case, you do want to wear gloves. Normally you would not in a shop situation. But here, because the chips that come off of this thing are so doggone hot, I always wear gloves, but make sure your gloves are very well fitting. Once again, make sure that your shirt isn't hanging out or anything. But in general, this saw is really safe to use, but just like a skill saw, they can bind and kick back. So you want to make sure that you're in a position to fight the tool, to keep command over the tool. Because even if you had to lay into this and stall the blade rather than have it kick back, so what? You burned up a $300 tool, but you didn't lose your leg. So that's the important thing. This particular time, I'm going to run this without the guard on. Don't ever do this. This is for learning purposes only. So for safe use, you want the guard on. When I'm cutting really thick plate, sometimes I will run it with the guard off, because it keeps the blade cooler. It can move air across the blade and keep it cool. Now, on a skill saw, typically you want to set the depth of your blade fairly shallow. I've found the saw runs cooler if you run it at full depth. It has less teeth in the material and it doesn't get as hot. So I've seen a lot of people run them more like a skill saw where you've only got the just breaking through your material. You've got 5 or 6 teeth into the material end, and I found the saw tends to creep a bit or wander. I get a straighter cut with it deep. Now that's all based on your own experiences. Everybody's going to run it a little different. The main thing is the technique of how you run it has to fit your use. And so there is no right or wrong, as long as you're not losing limbs and you're getting the work done. Do what works best for you. In my case, running at full depth, I get better blade life, I have better command over the thing. In one of my earlier videos, there were some comments about the fact of there are no impurities in steel, there's no density changes in steel, steel is always the same, blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you can see in the video here, this particular plate that I'm cutting up was used as a welding table. And so because of the magnetic frequency going through the plate, you can see there are patterns in the steel. Those are actually your density changes in the material. And so you've got a pattern coming across this way and another pattern going that way. Steel steel will often get a grain to it, just like wood does. So when they pour their batch and roll it out, those inconsistencies in density and alloy inconsistencies will come through. And in this case, we see it real well by the shadowing that's created from this being a welding table where there was a magnetic field created through the table. You can see those striations coming through physically in the plate. It's kind of interesting. And that's why I'm going to run this with the guard off right now, is so that you can see the spark dispatch out of this. You'll see the change in the density and the color of the sparks. And you'll also see my speed of travel all of a sudden just bog down and then start to travel as fast again and then bog down. Now that's assuming that I don't hit a really hard spot and the saw just stalls. On this thick of material, it's not uncommon to hit a hard spot or a carbon deposit, as I call them. And the material is almost as hard as the teeth on the blade. It'll just stop cutting. And if that happens, we don't have a very exciting video then. But I just wanted to show you the spark dispatch and the density changes in the steel. A lot of people might find that interesting, that a chunk of 3/8 plate, now this is A36, which is one of your softer alloys and a lower quality of blend, but it has a lot of grain to it, like a piece of wood. But this is also, like I say, 3/8 plate. This blade that's in here has several, probably 100 feet, 120 feet worth of cut on 1/4-inch plate. So this isn't a brand new sharp blade, it's a used blade. So it's also very likely, just because of the age of the blade, we won't get as good of a cut or as fast of a cut as we would with new material. Like I say, don't ever run this without the cover on, but that being said, I'm going to run it without the cover on for educational purposes. Now this is going to be really loud and noisy. When I decided to show you the difference in the alloy consistency, it was nowhere near as pronounced on this cut as it was on the prior one on this same plate. You can see a little bit through this section that it was coming out, the chips were much more red rather than orange, and I slowed down a little bit. When I did the other side of the plate, that was almost double. The sparks coming off were bright red, almost a blood red rather than the orange. So there was way more alloy inconsistency up on that end of the plate than there was here. Of course, when I decided to shoot the video of it, I don't get nearly as exaggerated of a difference that I did earlier, which is why I decided to shoot this video. But as you can see, even though this blade has quite a bit of use on it, it still cuts real well for a 3/8 thick plate. And the main benefit that we get by using this saw is this crisp, clean edge. Now you want to be real careful because this is a knife edge. This is very sharp and will make you bleed real easy. But you know, if we were to use the torch, you get this heat affected zone from the torch, and you'll get the same thing from a plasma cutter, and you get this slightly rough texture to it as well. Whereas with the saw, we don't get any heat affected zone, we get a really clean cut. So for a garage shop, if you're looking to cut plate, these saws are the best solution, because that $300 saw is doing the work of a $3,000 to $5,000 shear or a $10,000 plasma cutter. For your straight cuts, it's definitely the way to go. Millwalkee, Evolution, Harbor Freight, there's a half dozen others. Millwalkee and Evolution are the biggest two brands. and both of them have comparable features. I have not tried the Harbor Freight unit. I don't know how good it is, but I've been pretty loyal to Milwaukee. But that's our cold cut saw and some inconsistencies in the alloys and what we do to cut plate here at the shop. Thank you for watching. We're Minnesota Implement. Please check out our other videos and like and share as you see fit. Thank you.